I'd like to call the regular council meeting for the town of Bay-Westfield on Monday, April 11th, 2022 to order at 7 p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Woolston land. The lands of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolston, along which live the Woolston Way, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. Good evening, everyone. What a gorgeous day it was today. It finally feels like spring out there. Double digits and almost close to 20. I'll take that. As many of you know, we are at the point in the naming process for Entity 51, where we have the names for the ballot. The ballots themselves will be going out to the residents and businesses of Entity 51 this week, so watch your mailbox. I would like to take a moment to thank the community naming committee members. Your hard work, dedication, and integrity are very much appreciated. I would also like to thank all the many residents who took the time not only to submit name ideas, but to include really thoughtful rationales for your name submissions. Thank you. I would also like to encourage everyone to have their say during this democratic decision-making process. We need to hear your voice. I would also like to emphasize that if anyone requires assistance during the voting process, to reach out and we will assist you. At this time, I'd also like to take a moment to congratulate our CAO, John Enswind, on his 10-year anniversary as an active member of CAMA, the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. We're very lucky to have such a well-regarded professional on our team. Congratulations, John, and thank you for all the hard work you do on behalf of all the residents of Bay-Westfield.
Thank you.
Item 4, record of attendance. Let the record reflect that we have everyone in attendance with the exception of Councillor Day and Councillor Bailmans who are absent with cause. Item 5, agenda approval. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield approve the agenda of April 11, 2022 as presented. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Toole, do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. Are there any? There being none, let's move on to item 7, public hearings, presentations, delegations, and petitions. 7A, public hearing amending zoning bylaw number 122 and municipal plan number 121. And we have with us from Dillon Consulting, Jennifer Brown. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Your Worship.
We didn't receive any submissions regarding the hearing. Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yes, no submissions have been received. Thank you.
Ready for me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Your Worship, Council, for having me this evening. You've seen this a few times now, so it will be no surprise to you, but we want to make sure that we give the folks watching at home a bit of an overview, and as well, Council, give you a bit of a reminder. We're also going to give you a bit of a high-level update on what's coming with the subdivision bylaw this evening. So your subdivision bylaw doesn't get adopted in the same way that your municipal plan and zoning bylaw gets adopted. Your municipal plan and zoning bylaw obviously needs a public hearing. That's what I'm doing here this evening. But the subdivision bylaw is adopted just like any other bylaw you have in town. So animal control or minimum standards, something along those lines. So it's just a motion of council. What we're going to do is package that up, take it to PAC, get their views and comments, and then you'll come back and make a motion on that at the same time that you're making hopefully your third reading on this package of amendments. So just a bit of an overview of the process there. So just to highlight what we're looking at for these amendments. So the big impetus for me being here to do these amendments is the removal of your infrastructure charge. So the infrastructure charge specifically targeted at Colonel Mays Boulevard, and previous investments there. There is a development charge there. I think it's referred to as a frontage charge. So we're going through your municipal plan, your zoning bylaw, and your subdivision bylaw to remove any reference to the Colonel Mays specifically development charge. There's housekeeping amendments as well that we're doing to the zoning bylaw and subdivision bylaw. The housekeeping amendments are to better accommodate requests around seasonal dwellings, and also in line with updates to the Building Code Administration Act. We're also making a set of amendments that accommodate your mini and mobile homes being used as garden suites on a conditional basis, allowing PAC to review those. Subdivision amendments, again, as I mentioned, don't have to here. We are trying to update that subdivision bylaw to remove that reference to Colonel Mays development charge while still making sure that it's very obvious and obviously understood that developers are still responsible for putting in those pieces of infrastructure that are required. Your public streets, curb, gutter, stormwater management, all still required. We're just making sure that it's not targeted specifically towards Colonel Mays. The other thing with the subdivision bylaw, you went through a load of work to update your municipal plan, to update your zoning bylaw. The subdivision bylaw does need some update in order to kind of align with where you're going with your zoning bylaw. The community and past council, current council members, past PAC, current PAC, were very clear that you want it to be developer friendly, you want it to get the ball rolling on growth. So what we did in that zoning bylaw update was put those things in place. The framework is in place for that to happen. The next natural step is to clean up the subdivision bylaw so it aligns with those intentions. So in terms of, I'll fly through this pretty quick, but your municipal plan, there's no specific policy that references Colonel Mays, but there is a pretty substantial statement in kind of a preamble to a substantial policy section. So we're going to remove that reference to Colonel Mays Boulevard. In the mixed use zone, in your zoning bylaw, again, we have that preamble that prescribes a specific dollar figure. Let's just take that out of there. That's what you're looking at in terms of the zoning bylaw amendment. The subdivision bylaw, again, talks about specifically present and previous owners, and just any language that could be misconstrued as maybe a barrier to development. We want to clean that up, direct them to kind of the process over kind of policy. So again, keeping those sections that require them to install appropriate infrastructure, and the ideal situation here is that we no longer hold current developers kind of accountable for past decisions on infrastructure when it comes to cost. So in terms of this the seasonal dwelling housekeeping amendment is around, again, aligning with the Building Code Administration Act. We're looking to update the definition, which allows for a kind of as of right. So come in for a development permit, don't need to worry about anything other than that. To align with this measurement provided by the legislative update, which is the 58.06 square meters. Anything below that, at or below, just by essentially coming through the door and getting the permit from David, and they're good to go. Again, with the seasonal dwelling, not quite sure. Yep, we're on the same. Okay. So we're going to, there's a bit of kind of back and forth here in the rural resource zone. So we're moving it from the conditional list, bumping it up to the permitted list, but we're adding conditions of use. So they can come in and get a permit, check all those boxes by making sure that they're one seasonal dwelling unserviced per lot. Again, under that 58.06 square meters in gross floor area. And again, we have those criteria in the Building Code Administration Act. So David and his team and town staff are able to look at this and say, you meet the criteria, here's your permit, we're good to go. In terms of the mini and mobile home amendments, we're looking at adjusting some of the provisions in the general residential section. So under mobile homes, right now you're looking at only permitted in a mobile home residential zone. We'd like to kind of open that up a little bit. We heard a lot from the community and through the process of updating the zoning bylaw that there is obviously a need for some additional residential units, as well as some provisions around garden suites. One of the big kind of changes through the zoning bylaw was to allow more freedom in the residential zones to allow these garden suites and secondary suites. This is in line with that. So we're adding the mini and mobile homes in as a conditional use. We're requiring PAC to kind of look at it to ensure that your garden suites are behind the building line, in the side yard, and to the rear of the building. There is also some language around encouraging PAC to make sure that they're contextually appropriate so that they blend in quite well. We're talking about baby steps here because there was some contention around adding mobile homes into kind of your traditional residential neighborhoods. So we want to sensitively integrate them, but we understand that the priority is to get folks in housing, and that seems to be the priority of the community. This will allow them to do that while having PAC act as kind of the safety for that, to ensure that there's conditions that are put on these developments that are appropriate to allow the neighborhood to be okay with that integration of use. So again, we still have those conditions that are already baked right into the bylaw. We're asking that PAC essentially through process will enforce those conditions and then have the freedom to allow additional conditions should they be contextually appropriate. So you're looking at a mobile or mini home being permitted as conditional uses in the 1 and 2 unit residential zone as garden suites, and conditional use of the multiple residential zone as garden suite. So just a quick overview around the subdivision bylaw amendments, and I mentioned kind of a very high level in my intro, but the impetus here is really to remove that development charge really targeted at Carmen Boulevard, but the additional kind of housekeeping amendments, we're looking at increasing definitions, which may sound kind of mundane, but the more definitions you have in the bylaw, the easier it is to make sure that there's less loophole. So folks can see what is meant by things like lot frontage, lot depth, all of those things are outlined. We're introducing things like improved process descriptions around type 1 and type 2 subdivisions, which are defined by the Community Planning Act. So you have your type 1, which is no new roads are needed, you're just subdividing the lot. Type 2 is new roads are needed, there should be a process obviously around that, and those are the subdivisions that land in your lap and there's complexity to them. So we're trying to draw out that process so that it's a little bit more defined, a little bit easier to follow for PAC, council, and the developer. Clarity also around the administration of land for public purposes. We need to be very clear here that the priority is to take cash in lieu. The priority isn't to add to your already wealth of lands for public purpose. New subdivisions, the act says that you need to have a certain amount reserved, 8%, but the town can take 8% in market value and put it towards the recreation amenity, which obviously at this point would benefit the community a lot more than having slivers of land placed throughout the community. So also there's some need for increased clarity around road specifications and how they're applied. Well, I'm not advancing the slides appropriately, but here we are. So we need to look at the provision for public streets and private streets, what those look like. If there is a situation where there is a private road prescribed through a subdivision, what's the minimum standard? We need to point to that in the subdivision bylaw so there's no murkiness in how the interpretation or where the interpretation is coming from. And again, improved submission requirements to provide clarity around developer responsibility. This means, how do the plans come in? What do the site plans look like? You're already seeing an elevated level of applications come through the door because you're expecting that through your new municipal plan, new zoning bylaw. Subdivision comes in and just really cleans that up. So we're saying, you have to give us a site plan. When you're talking about subdivisions, they have to be stamped by an engineer, just those basic minimum requirements, which developers are anticipating, but it means that they can't, there's no taking advantage anymore. It's outlined in your bylaws. The process is there for staff, for council, for PAC. and for the development community. Quick process overview tonight obviously is the public hearing indicated by this arrow. Your readings will be scheduled next meeting, and then we'll bring the subdivision bylaw through for your third reading. So just a reminder again, subdivision for some reason described in the act does not require a public hearing, but we are going to do our due diligence by taking it to the planning advisory committee, which is also prescribed by the act. We're still going to get public input. It'll be on the agenda for PAC, which is posted to the public. Very much welcome the public's input. So again, just to remember that the subdivision bylaw is really putting those next steps in place for your zoning bylaw updates. So that's it for me, but I am very open to any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. I know this has been a really heavy lift, the removal of those infrastructure charges, or what are known as the frontage fees on Colonel Nace, involves changes to those 3 bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to remove those, as you've indicated, there are many steps that need to be taken. And it's, we started this process several months ago, not realizing it would be all 3 bylaws that we'd have to address, but the frontage fees on Colonel Nace were identified in our economic development plan as being a barrier to development. So it was important for us to go ahead and do all this. So thank you for that as well. And I really liked your explanation too about the housekeeping that's been going on, and how that reflects what the community said they wanted during the municipal plan bylaw process, that the community wants that flexibility in the residential zones to allow people to fill in those gaps in our housing stock. So that was really great. I really appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Jennifer?
Carmen, Your Worship.
Yes.
I just want to express my thanks as a new councillor on new PAC. Jennifer has given this wonderful explanation and a little bit more hand-holding for PAC members like myself. It's been great. We all understand what the overall purpose is, as the mayor so correctly mentioned. It's going to be well worth the effort, and if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right. So very soon we'll be able to hopefully announce that there's a big check mark and that the frontage fees or development fees are completely gone, retroactive back to a certain date, but we won't celebrate until all of this is done. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, it's retroactive to Jan 1 of this year.
Yes. So thank you very much, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you.
From
I
PAC
appreciate it.
perspective.
Any other questions or comments for Jennifer while we have her? Thank you very much. It was again nice to see you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Your Worship, Council. I appreciate the time.
So the motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield receive and file the information as presented.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. A second. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 8, minutes of previous meeting. 8A, regular council minutes of March 28th, 2022. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of March 28th, 2022 as presented. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second?
Second, Your Worship.
Councillor Malcolm. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9, unfinished business. 9A, Operation White Hart. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield approve the estimate from Shades of Green to install and maintain the 14-foot White Hart at a cost of $29.80 plus HST to install, and a cost of $250 per month plus HST to maintain it on the slope in front of Fire Station Number 2 until the end of 2022. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. John, can you speak to this item, please?
I'm gonna say 6 weeks ago, we had a gentleman present about Operation White Hart, for the town to be able to erect a symbol about hope for, I believe it was mental illness, if I recall correctly. And to administration, it sounded like he'd like the town to do something, that he's been building these little white hearts on private residence the town's a little bit of a different story. So we got out an estimate, $3,000 and $250 a month. So that's what it would cost to have it done in front of the fire department or fire station. The thinking there was that being on a slope, it'd be highly prominent, and there's a fair bit of traffic at that intersection with 102 and 177 or Nericus Road. So that's the price for all of it. I'm suggesting that perhaps we just refer it to budget 2023, but I also understand that this is something important. If council does want to do it, we can find the money. So at the end of the day, it's for council. For us to build a small hut somewhere ourselves, that may be 6 feet or 7 feet, we don't really have the tools or the people to be able to do something like that. We're a fairly lean organization, Your Worship.
Thank you, John. I guess my question is with respect to, I know that that Mr. Brown is doing them himself. Like you can contact him and he will actually cut the heart out on your turf yourself. And the only thing that you have to do as a resident is to pay for the white stone. I guess my question is, if we choose to defer this item to budget 2023, because it is a significant financial item, can we do something smaller?
That's what I'm saying. Administration understood that he was asking the town to do something, but that he's been helping private residents, not a municipality or a corporation.
Okay.
So that's where we interpreted his presentation, that we can reach out to him and ask him if he would do something smaller for us. We can do that. It is $3,000 plus. Offhand, anybody know how much that is total? So May, June, July, August, September, October. $1,500, $1,500. Excuse me, to do it. So it's up to council. I don't mind contacting him or having him contact and see if he would do it. But again, if we do a smaller one, the question that we wrestled with is where could it be seen? One of the other locations we looked at was Westfield Crescent, which is towards the north end of town. And our concern there is that it would be difficult to see because there is a bit of a slope there, but it's not significant. So it could be there. The other thing is, it's not like we have a lot of green space, but we don't want to take away from what green space we do have either. So per council's direction, we can contact him, see if he doesn't mind it, and we can do that. Picking weeds out, so it's a big chore. That's why we suggested shades of green. If we're going to have something like that, it should be big, it should be visible, and it should be well cared for.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments for John on the item? Stephanie?
I really like the idea of a large one that is visible, but that may not be feasible this year. So I would be interested in contacting Mr. Brown to see if he could maybe do a couple of small ones around town.
Okay. It is $3,000. The operational cost was more than we anticipated. Excuse me.
And Mr. Brown isn't equipped to do one that large, is that correct?
No, I would think not. And it's on a hill too.
Yeah.
Your Worship, I was scratching my head over the weekend reading this. I truly support the project, but the cost with operational costs from Shades of Green from their quote, pretty well $4,500, and I find that actually too excessive. So I was thinking, how else could we temporarily do something this year? I respect the CAO's suggestion that we may want to defer this to next year for a larger one. But maybe a bit of a compromise, and that would be, we have a lot of community groups, like scouts, scout troops, air cadet squadrons, air cadets who live here in the town, or Army cadets, and with a little bit of direction and maybe some assistance from Mr. Brown, and also maybe assistance from our friends at the Westfield Golf and Country Club who have a sod cutter, maybe we could put it in a place that gets a lot of visitation that's not on a slope. And I was thinking in one corner of the the Brundage Point River Center, just a small one, As far as operations and keeping it clean and that, we do have summer students who will be working there, at least for the summer. And I'd submit that the cost of doing all of that would be significantly less than $3,000 plus $1,500. And it would be something that we could do this year, and then decide whether or not we want to do the larger one the following year. And I'm sure Mr. Brown would help that area, that squadron or the scout group, and I'd have no problem contacting either if I was asked to do so.
And Councillor Balcom, I'm with you on the cost being very high for something like that, especially where it's unbudgeted. But I do feel it's important for us to show solidarity and support for this initiative, and to help spread awareness of suicide prevention. And it's, I'm seeing the white hearts pop up all over the place. Not just here in Bay-Westfield, but all over the region. So if we're able to do something smaller that shows that we are in support of the mission, then I would be supportive of that. John, is that something that we're able to?
Yeah, we can look into it, so just ask council to defeat the motion. And then maybe have a new one, directed administration or Councillor Balcom to contact community group to work with Mr. Brown to do a small one. I think we need to look at the Brundage Point one and see if it might fit there before committing to it.
Of course.
But yeah, so defeat this motion. Or no, don't defeat, well, defeat it, and then another motion saying to refer this to the budget 2023 and direct administration to see if there's a way to build a smaller one.
All right, so we'll take care of the first motion and then we'll go on to the second one. Unless you have any more questions or comments on this particular motion.
I just like the idea of Brundage Point, even though it's not as visible from the road, it's someplace people could visit and so that's actually might even have as much of an impact as a large one you can see from afar, a smaller one where you can have people go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. So all in favor? Contrary minded? Okay, motion is defeated. John, can you help me with the second motion, please? How that should be worded?
The Council of Town of Bay-Westfield refer the White Hart, Operation White Hart project to budget 2023 considerations.
We want to include something about the smaller motion.
Administration work with Council Balcom to build a smaller White Hart somewhere.
We have a mover. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Councillor Balcom, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion as stated? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Item 10, bylaws. 10A, Municipal Plan Bylaw number 121. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield receive and file the PAC memo. I'll run through these one at a time, right?
Yes.
May I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. 10B, zoning bylaw number 122. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield receive and file the PAC memo. I have a mover.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 10C. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield request the written views of the Planning Advisory Committee on the proposed draft subdivision bylaw number 124. I have a motion. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. And for anybody that's watching, these are just the motions surrounding what Jennifer Stone from Dillon Consulting talked about in her presentation earlier. Thank you, Council. 11, new business recommendations. 11A, pandemic mitigation policy update. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield adopt the pandemic mitigation policy. May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. John, can you speak on this item, please?
Yeah, so we're just updating it, and the primary change is that all new employees need to be vaccinated. And full vaccination is just considered 2 shots. It doesn't include booster shots at this time.
Thank you. Do you have any questions or comments on the motion?
Your Worship,
Councillor Malcolm?
just wondering, CAO, what are other local municipalities, how are they faring with this policy? Do they have one?
So it's all over the map, basically, Councillor. However, in talking with my colleagues, more of them are moving to now requiring the vaccine shots. However, they, like us, have 100% compliance with vaccines. So I don't know they're the right ones to ask. But anyway, so basically, there isn't a set standard. However, the groups that I'm talking with, we're all moving towards this one. And then UMB doesn't have a position on this. The executive director's observation was like mine, is that it depends where you are, whether or not to be required.
Okay, thank you. And further question, Your Worship. If one of our employees tests positive and has to stay home for public health requirements of 5 days, or maybe other imposed 10 days in a place of work, maybe ourselves here, is there the possibility that town employees could work remotely given the technology? The reason I ask, where I work, almost everybody except myself has had COVID, and they've all been able to work remotely from home during that period of time without missing any time, except for 1 or 2 days of suitability out.
So, Councillor, it really depends on the position. But everybody here at the meeting today, including the rec director who is homesick, we all have worked at home before. Some of us have had COVID recently, and we have worked at home. So that is not an issue. The leadership team here has been working from home since the beginning. During the first lockdown, most of the leadership team worked from home. So that's been a common practice here for over 2 years now.
Fantastic, glad to hear that. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. Do you have any other questions or comments on the motion? I sort of want to highlight that this is sort of, this is what, the second time we've gone through the pandemic mitigation policy?
I think so, and I don't know how many times we've done it since I've been here. I think it's the 4th update altogether, isn't it?
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize that this is a living document and it will change as our situation worldwide and locally changes as well. It's a, a living document, and when things are, I mean, we're still in the pandemic. We're looking at maybe a potential 6th wave coming, so we need to be mindful. If there are no further comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. 11B, time and lieu policy. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield approves the time and lieu policy. I have a motion.
So move.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, can you talk on the time and lieu policy, please?
Yes, Your Worship. Prior to my arrival and then prior to this council, the only person from the leadership team who attended council meetings was the CAO, and before me, the town manager. I've made the change to bring them here to help facilitate good decision-making by council, timely decision-making as well. However, their extra hours weren't recognized or compensated for. So per the Labor Standard, what's it called here in New Brunswick? Employment Standards Act? I don't know, that's what it was. Anyways, the labor law requires that there has to be some type of recognition. So we've done that. I've outlined all the regular meetings that leadership team members are expected to attend. And so people now will get appropriate time off, which is basically 1 day a month. They have to use it within that month or seek my permission to use it the following month. Because we have seasons where we're very busy and it's time to get off. It's difficult to get away from the office for that day.
Thank you, John. Do you have any questions or comments on the motion?
Just a quick comment that I think this is time well spent. I think all of us have appreciated having the leadership team here at meetings. It's been good for information gathering and for the public to see as well, the information that goes on. So I would fully support this, and it's been a great addition to have everyone.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Yeah, I would just highlight that having staff here, it brings significant value to us during the decision-making process. And we've been a very busy council, and we've been doing a lot of work and pushing a lot of things through, which means that our leadership team has been attending a lot of meetings, and it's really important that they get compensated with the time in lieu, because we want them to be happy, we want them to have good quality of life, and as much as possible, a decent work-life balance. I don't know if is that possible with you?
I'm not commenting.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Item 11C, social media terms of use policy. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield adopt the social media terms of use and authorize staff to post the social media terms of use on the town's social media pages. I have a motion. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second? Councillor Balcom. John, do you want to explain the policy?
Yes, Your Worship. Basically, this just ensures that there isn't any hateful or discriminatory language that's posted on the town's social media pages. This is the initiative of our new communications officer, and this is a policy that's used in a number of municipalities within New Brunswick. So it'll be posted likely tomorrow is what I'm thinking, and then inappropriate comments will be removed.
Thank you, John. It's to ensure a safe space, that our social media pages are a safe space.
Exactly, online bullying and online harassment is an issue. It's even a bit of an issue for municipal employees. And we just want to make sure that it's a safe environment as possible that we can make for everybody.
Do you have any questions or comments on the motion?
Just a quick comment that would be a plug for the social media of the town and for the town's website, that all the information is there, that we do have communications officers, they're plugging out information all the time. So just a plug to everyone who's looking, that we have excellent content on those sites, and it's the place to go to look for town information.
Your Worship, and just building on Deputy Mayor's comments, the communications officer has been tweaking and cleaning stuff up and adding stuff. So even though there may not be any dramatic changes like we had about a year ago now with the new website, we're continually improving it, modifying it, and he's got a bit of a plan in mind of what he's doing for the rest of the year on the website.
There are no more further questions or comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11D, 2022 various fees. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield adopt the various 2022 town fees effective immediately. Do I have a motion? Thank you. Deputy Mayor Toole, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. John, do you want to give a quick background on the motion, please?
The mill rates stayed the same this year, which is the net change is real though. And we also raised the sewer rates. We're keeping all the town fees the same, Your Worship. So there's no change there.
No change. That's great. Thank you. Do you have any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. 11E, 2022 line of credit. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield grant authorization to establish a 2022 line of credit for the town with respect to the sewerage utility fund as per section 117, bracket 13 of the Local Governance Act for an amount not to exceed $264,270, and further a line of credit for the general operating fund as per section 100, bracket 2 of the Local Governance Act for an amount not to exceed $268,891. I have a motion. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, can you speak on this, please?
This is just one of those, excuse me, one of those nice to haves, Your Worship. Our assistant treasurer is not aware of when the last time was to use a line of credit. However, sometimes you have to carry costs. I think, I shared with council carrying costs from the 2018 flood to 2019 flood. So that's where the line of credit may come in handy, but really, this is my third municipality, never used it.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for John on the motion?
Just one question. If we ever have to use it, does the CAO request the use of that through council, or is that something that you make yourself?
This is it.
This is it, okay, absolutely.
I'll let you know if we dip into it.
Okay, thank you.
And do you have a question? So is this something, because it says 2022 line of credit, is this something that the municipality applies for every single year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we would have to go through this process in 2023, 2024, and they have done this in previous years as well.
Yes, that's right. It's nothing abnormal.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions for John on the item? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And we are on to item 11F, Kelly Development Limited Subdivision. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield approve the payment of $133.12 money in lieu of land of public purposes for the creation of 5 new lots out of PID 301-48480, fronting onto Highland Road as shown on tentative subdivision plan, Kelly Development Limited, Phase 2, as prepared by Saunier Surveys dated March 28, 2022. I have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. I have a second. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. So, John, can you give us some background on the item, please?
This is just a gentleman who wants to develop his lot. The town no longer accepts physical green space. Quite often it was inconvenient space for the developers that were given to the town, which really aren't very functional. So it's been common practice, I think for 20 years or something like that, that we just accept that.
Right. And Jennifer referred to that in her presentation as well, that
Yeah.
the money in lieu of land.
Yeah, and the reason that the number is so small is it's bare land and its value very low. Having said that, with the subdivision, these separate lots will be valued likely larger than that one large lot. Sorry,
I could just make one comment because it came out of Jennifer's presentation talking about the type 1 and type 2 subdivisions.
Yes.
This is a type 1 subdivision because the street infrastructure's there already, doesn't need a developer's agreement. And then the more difficult ones where you're extending the street, that would be type 2.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, David. And this is a good news story. Anytime we see subdivision of land, that means growth and development, and that's that's in alignment with our strategic plan. So this is a good news item. Are there any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. We are on 11G, demand loan approval. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield grant authorization for a demand loan at Scotiabank regarding ministerial approval number 22-0019 concerning protective services in the amount of $810,000 for a term of 1 year. I have a motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. I have a second. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. John?
This is a bright, shiny red toy for council. We have permission to go purchase that fire truck. And you can tell by the smile on the chief's face that he's looking forward to this.
Alright, do we have any questions or comments on the motion?
Just a question through yourself, your worship, to the chief. I asked the chief this before, but I forget, so I have to ask again. What is a potential delivery timeframe, plus or minus 5 months?
Traditionally, the past trucks we've purchased were under a year, they're now looking 16 to 18 months.
Good things take time.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Thank you, your worship.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried, thank you. We are on to item 11F and, 11H, rediscover Main Street. The motion, well, actually we should, maybe Johnny can speak on the item before I state the motion because there's a blank on it that needs to be discussed.
So this is a program being developed by the federal government to, kind of a COVID kickstart type of thing. How do we draw people back downtown? I regret to tell you, or it's unfortunate to tell you that we don't have all the details yet. And the people that we're working with this on don't have all the details yet. So all we're asking is that there is a concept that I shared with council, and it's about including lighting display. And the whole intent, the whole intent of the lighting display or whatever we choose is that how do we, in their term, activate, or how do we draw people to a downtown area? The other thing too is we don't have a traditional downtown. Haven't seen too many towns like ours where we don't really have a downtown area. And so what the suggestion would be is we're still finding, still learning details, but that we're suggesting maybe Brundage Point or Unity Park that can be used to be a drawing point or a focal point for visitors or for people to come. So as we learn more, I'll bring that to council's attention, and but we need to get a bit of a quote to move the concept forward, and then if things change, I'll be coming back to council. But we need to get moving on this, even though we don't have all the details. We're still waiting for the details.
So John, you're looking for us to give you some guidance on where this potential installation can be located within the borders of the town?
Yeah, so there's Brundage Point, River Center, there's Unity Park. Do we want to look at where the caboose used to be? Those are really the only three things that I can think of off the top of my head. But anyways, where can we bring people to? And this may be one of those locations, one of those three, but we need to get a quote going.
Right, and so we're working with Envision St. John on this to find the best application, or the best location for it. And their application includes, there's other things I guess in the application, but it's a series of animated lighting installations.
Yeah, that's what this concept is.
So in the various municipalities in the region. So, and ideally, it'll be regionally consistent is the idea, correct?
Yeah, so Envision's, I want to say vision. Envision's vision is that there'll be conceptually similar displays in Hampton, Quispam, Rossay, St. John, and Grand Bay-Westfield. So that, someone is taking a tour or they're visiting, oh, look, this is Grand Bay's compared to Hampton's or something like that. Of course, ours will be better. It goes without saying. But that's what Envision is imagining, that there'll be this thematic link of the lights. They can be computer monitored and activated so that you have a display going on, and they could also be set to music as well. That's the concept they've come up with.
So has the leadership team come up with some potential this is where we think the best spot should be? Is there any recommendation coming from staff on this?
We don't know what the best spot would be, Your Worship. Sorry, that's why we're throwing it.
Oh, rather than,
We don't have a really good recommendation for you, sorry.
okay,
However, once we, get the people who are doing it, and we show them 3 locations, and they say, well, you guys have suggested, Brundage Point, but really, the gazebo at Unity Park would be more effective. Or, this is too isolated, there seems to be more stores and stuff by where the caboose used to be. Why don't we set something up there?
okay.
So they may have an opinion as well. We have to start somewhere.
Councillor Malcolm, do you have any,
I think it's exciting, but trying to find the best place, we really don't have a downtown or very large downtown, and if that's what the intention is, from what I read in the background information documents, we may be limited to where it can go. As the CAO said, perhaps when we have more information and technical information and where the best places in other locations have been, maybe we'll have a better idea to make a decision.
I agree with Councilor Balcom. Let's just table this until we get 1, more information, and 2, once we actually meet the person who they'll take you drive through and say, this is the place to put it.
yeah, because I love the idea. It's about creating a value proposition. It's about creating an interesting space that people will want to come to and experience. So I feel that we need more information before we go ahead and make that.
Yeah, we just don't have enough, Your Worship.
So the motion would be to table item 11,
We'll just write table.
table? Okay.
And we'll bring it back May 9th. We'll aim for that. I don't want to stay 2 weeks from now because then that may not be enough time for them to get their stuff done.
Right, yeah, and I just wanna highlight too that, that the Rediscover Main Street money is, what's the term, it's, non-leveraged funds.
Yeah, it's a grant, we don't have to match it, cover 100% of the costs. There's some costs that aren't covered, and if we decide to do that, well then, that's us.
Yeah, that's us, I just wanted to highlight that, that's not to, that may not require us to match any funds, so.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they did that for the fire truck.
Okay, look at our MP on that one. Okay, so item 12, bills for payment. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the April 11th, 2022 bills for payment as presented in the amount for $51,825.50. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second?
Second, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence?
Number 51, the EpiPens, I think I've asked this before, but where are they located throughout town?
So we have EpiPens here at the Central, and then if you go up to Brundage Park River Center, we have some there, and then at the Lions building, that's where the 3rd set is.
This is a little bit out of scope, but do we have on our website where those are?
I'll have to ask Brock to take a peek.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, and it might be worth publicizing that so
Sure.
that our residents know where those are.
And we should probably do the AEDs while perhaps.
Yes, yes, very good.
So, Brock, could you include AEDs as well?
Yes.
Do we have any other questions or comments on the item? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence? No, you're good. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. Item 13, consent agenda. Item A, first quarter sewerage report 2022. B, annual bonding. C, role of the transition facilitator. D, government type guidance table. E, naming committee selection. F, Canadian Cancer Society Help Hope Bloom. G, municipal kilometerage maintenance responsibility. H, DTI road ahead plan investments. I, NB organ and tissue program. And J, CAMA. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the consent agenda items for April 11th, 2022. I have a motion.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do we have any questions or comments on the item? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 14, council reports. We'll be short and sweet tonight. We're a little light on our councillors, so we'll start with Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
I don't really have a lot other than talking to residents about local government reform and the naming process. The only other thing I would like to mention is I would just like to give a shout out to the naming committee and all the hard work that they've done. It was a vast amount of work in a short amount of time. They were very transparent, very thorough. Their process has been deemed the gold standard for the province, and other municipalities are asking to use the process, and if they're not using the process, why they're not using the process, and why Bay-Westfield gets to, their residents get to have a voice and we don't get to have a voice. So I would just like to commend the naming committee for the work that they've done the past few weeks.
Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Deputy Mayor Toole.
Thank you. And with me, it's been local governance reform all the time as well. I like Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. And I continue to sit on the UM and the Local Governance Reform Committee, subcommittee made up of people from different municipalities across the province. And what I can let people know, I think I mentioned the same thing last time, is one of the main issues facing everyone is communication. And so as we mentioned before under one of the items on the agenda, just want to stress to anybody watching that we have put a lot of effort into our communications about giving you information that we have on this process, and the time's coming up, and our transition facilitator has been very good to work with us to get some communications out there. So our website is an excellent spot for that information, and also the mayor has a Facebook page as well that it puts out timely information. So to encourage people to go there because the information is there. And also, again, I will second what Councilor McIntosh said about the naming committee. I've had the pleasure of participating in that committee, and it was a lot of people with some, because they put really good work into that and did a lot of stuff in a short period of time, and people were really devoted and really took that very seriously. So that was great to be on that committee, and I want to thank staff who supported that committee as well, because it was a lot of work on their part. So I was kind of happy that the ballots are coming out, so it'll be a nice new phase.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Councillor Balcom.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had to make a few notes, getting forgetful. The past 2 weeks seem to have flown by at Mach speed. I think that happens as one gets older. Last Monday, I attended the monthly PAC meeting in these chambers. I'm getting the feeling that PAC will be getting busier, as there seems to be a renewed interest in new construction and in home additions. I'm still having citizens approach me or call me at home with questions about municipal reform, and in particular about the name and the naming process. Most understand and are anxious to vote now. A few are still questioning why certain names were not selected by the naming committee to appear on the ballot. After talking with them, I've told them that the naming committee, they had a very difficult job to do, to reduce from ballpark figure 300 names down to 4. Very difficult decision and process, and I respect their decision and the process that they followed, and I thank them for their volunteer service on that. There is a fact that the name Grand Bay alone did not make it on the ballot. When Grand Bay amalgamated with Westfield in 1998, Grand Bay Home Hardware, Grand Bay Primary, Grand Bay Baptist Church, they didn't have to change their corporate names because there was a geographic name in the community that governed them. Nor did Westfield Golf and Country Club or Westfield United Church or Westfield Ferry have to change their name to Grand Bay Westfield. The community that I live in and am proud to live in is currently Grand Bay Westfield, and it will be one of the 5 names on the ballot. It's soon time to vote, to accept the voting results of the democratic process of voting, and then to move on to other more important things in our newly enlarged community. Population growth, housing developments, improving our water and sewer infrastructure, possible garbage collection for the entire new community, and the list goes on. So I ask everybody who is 18 years and older and over when they get their paperwork in the mail, please vote and let's move on together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. And again, Council, I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. It's local governance reform and amalgamation and everything that we're doing to advance our strategic plan. It's been a lot of hard work, and I appreciate your commitment to the plan and moving things forward, and that goes for the leadership team and all the staff as well. So item 15, business arising from committee of the whole. There being none, we will move on to item 16, adjournment. The motion. Oh, sorry, yes.
The development officer just brought something to my attention. I don't recall seeing it. It goes to 11F, I believe. There is a second motion that we neglected to include by the looks of it.
Oh, with the Kelly subdivision?
Yes. Yeah, we only had one motion,
Yeah, I only have one motion.
and there's a second motion.
Okay.
So on the technical side, so my apologies. And approve as an agreement in principle between the town of Grand Bay-Westfield and Kelly Developments Limited for a multi-parcel grant under the town's Development Incentives Program with the creation of 5 new vacant building lots located on Highland Road at the current PID 301-48480. Individual annual grants will to be paid up to a maximum of 5 annual installments for each of the vacant lots. Grants will end if the lots are issued a permit for development or sold. Once the new lots have a property assessment value established by Service New Brunswick, a memorandum of understanding will be completed for disbursement of the grants fund based on an annual confirmation of payment of taxes, or of payment of taxes only. And that's from the development officer. If you have any questions, I'm just going to refer to that or to him very quickly if you do have one.
Okay.
But basically it's just to ensure that he's eligible for the applicable grants.
All right, for the development incentive program.
That's right.
That's right. Anybody have any questions? Well, I'll take motions first, and we'll open for questions. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second?
Worship, I'd be pleased to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Do we have any questions for our development officer on that item?
I assume this is similar to the one that on Green Avenue that has gone through, yeah.
Done 2 others that are still.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions or comments on the item? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Anything to spur the development of the town? That's all good news. I'm pleased to see that. So then we will officially move on to item 16, which is adjournment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adjourn the meeting at 8:02 p.m. We have a motion. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do we have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, everybody.